Hey guys, Jamie Travel 4 here, and welcome back to What If Blank Was in Death Battle. Now, how long has it been since I did one of these? Like, a year? uh, though I probably don't have to go over the whole point of the series. It's very obvious. I just take a series and then come up with a bunch of death battle matchups for the characters in said series. It's not that hard to understand. Oh, I just explained it anyways. Well, what series am I doing today, you may ask? No, you're not asking that. Because this... Unless you're watching the video blindfolded, you know what series I'm doing. Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. Now, an actually good question to ask is... which characters am I going to be including in this video? Well, I'll only be covering the base game specimens. That's specimens 1 to 13 plus 2 other characters. That means no secret specimens, no dolls, no hospital monsters. Just the 13 specimens and 2 other characters. That's it. So, let's get straight into this with the first matchup, the Protagonist. The Protagonist from Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion versus Luigi, specifically from Luigi's Mansion. Now, this has got some very simple connections. They're explorers of creepy mansions owned by ghosts. It's simple. Now, what like? Again, only basing this off Luigi's Mansion. I think it makes it a more interesting battle. Because if you give Luigi everything he's got, then he's kind of stomps. I still think Luigi probably wins, but I think it's more fair if you just give him Luigi's Mansion stuff. I mean, what about this fight? I mean, like, you could have an interesting dynamic of Luigi being very cowardly and the protagonist being much more aggressive. I think that could be an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I don't really have much to talk about here. So move on to Spooky. Who's Spooky up against? Well, Spooky versus Erma from the Erma comics, webcomic. I mean, they're ghost children. It's that simple. Ghost children. I mean, it's like my favorite of Spooky's matchups, but that's not really saying much because Spooky doesn't have very many good matchups. I mean, originally I was going to put Casper here. That's how desperate I was for a good matchup. I mean, you've also got like King Boo, but I already have a Luigi. I already have a Luigi on the list, so yeah, Erma. Spooky probably wins this. I mean, she did create a mansion with infinite rooms. That's a pretty impressive feat. So, yeah. Moving on. Probably the dumbest thing in this entire video. Specimen 1 versus Bendy Cutout from Bendy the Ink Machine. They are cardboard cutouts who jump scare you. But they're meant to be like joke jump scares within actual horror games. This should never exist. If Death Battle did one matchup from this video, it should never be this one. This one is the worst matchup in the entire video. There's not even a winner. You physically cannot have a winner here because they're both inanimate objects. Neither of them can move. Well, I guess Specimen 1 has that spring-loaded feature, so I guess they could knock the Bendy Cutout over or something. Sure. Specimen 1 versus Bendy Cutout. Moving on, Specimen 2. The Goo versus the Wheezing Demon from Insidious. It's an interesting. I don't know too much about Insidious, but from what I've found out, the connection here is that they are ghost-like entities. Who are ghost-like? They're not actually ghosts, but they're ghost-like entities who have trouble breathing. That's the main connection. They can't breathe. With Specimen 2's letters mentioning that it's in a constant state of choking, and the Wheezing Demon being the Wheezing Demon. He wheezes. He can't breathe. I don't know too much about Insidious, so I can't quite say too much on the matchup, but I came up with it. It's neat. It's better than a inspired versus inspiration. I'm not the biggest fan of inspired versus inspiration matchups, so that's why I didn't go with the adventure type thing that inspired Specimen 2. So yeah, from what I've read up, the Wheezing Demon probably wins. It has a more varied arsenal, and I think it could still actually be a somewhat interesting matchup though. So hey, let's move on. Specimen 3. Specimen 3 versus the Xenomorphs from Alien. This would probably be a group fight with multiple Specimen 3s versus multiple Xenomorphs. Because that's how this works. Basically, the connection is they are species of very non-human creatures that attack people in a sci-fi setting and are known for sneaking around in the ceiling. It's neat. It's a pretty neat matchup. The Xenomorphs probably win, but it's interesting. It's neat. I think it is coolio. You could have a very pretty animalistic kind of thing, and it's a group fight. A group fight or animalistic group fight. That could be cool. That just has cool written all over it. Okay, let's move on. Specimen 4 versus the ghost girl from Slendytubbies. Now wait. Specimen 4 versus what's Ghost Girl? Ghost Girl, me, in the Slendytubbies community, be known as one of the worst characters in Slendytubbies because it just doesn't fit the world at all. But hey, it's better. It's the best I could give you. They're ghost girls who kill people in schools. It's that simple. I went with this because I told you I don't like inspired versus inspiration, which is why there's no Sadako or Samara on here. Because, yeah, I'm not too sure who wins. I want to say Specimen 4 because Specimen 4 is more interesting than the Ghost Girl. Yeah. I don't know. Imaginary friend should die. That's for sure. Let's just move on to the next one. Specimen 5 versus Scrap Baby from Five Nights at Freddy's. They have a big weapon for a hand. I'm pretty sure there's more connections than that. I'm really pretty sure there's more connections. But I just don't know what they are. I just don't know what the connections are. I feel like there's more, but I can't think of them. I'm a big fan of the Freddy's fan, and Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. I enjoy that. But I just, I can't think. I feel like there's more connections than just big hand weapon. Big weapon for hand. But, I don't know, so Hey, tell me in the comments if you can think of any more connections with this fight or any of these other fights, because if you can flesh out these connections more, or if you can flesh out how these fights would go more, even that, I'd love to hear that. Honestly, I'd love to hear that, or even your own matchups for these characters. That'd be great. But let's just move on to Specimen 6. Now, if you've seen my SCP's in Death Battle video, you already know that Specimen 6's matchup is SCP-173 from the SCP Foundation. They've both got the classic trope of turning away, of attacking when they're not being looked at. So this classic trope, by the Weeping Angels. This is my favourite matchup for both, honestly. Again, don't like Inspiration versus Inspired, which is why I'm not the biggest fan of Weeping Angels versus either of these. Plus, the Weeping Angels are a species, while these two are individuals. But also, another thing is they're both studied by scientists alongside other numbered entities. Specimen 6, SCP-173, they're both numbered and studied by scientists. It's neat. It's neat. I mean, 173 definitely wins. 173 is capable of harming SCP-682. That alone nets him the win, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, it's neat. I think you could have a fight scene that takes place in pitch black, but like, well, not actually pitch black. Like, the fight would take place in pitch black, canonically, but like, we would see the fight as if it wasn't pitch black. Because that's the only way you could actually fight, is if it was pitch black, so neither could see each other, but they'd both be fighting each other. I think it actually makes it pretty neat. Like, neither combatant can see each other, because in order for the fight to actually happen, neither can actually see each other. So it's neat. It's neat. But also, because they're known for moving when turned away from. I mean, 173, obviously great at moving in the dark, but I don't think Specimen 6 ever actually moved in the dark. Although Specimen 6 is capable of rising up high, so harder for 173 has, but 173 definitely has the stat advantage, though. And speed. AP, definitely. Let's move on to Specimen 7 versus Pennywise from It. These are two otherworldly beings who wield fear as their greatest weapon. Now this fight could be extremely mindfucky. That's what this fight would be. Mindfucky. Like, whew. Could the wall of flesh take down a Pennywise avatar? I'm not too sure. I think possibly could take. I think Specimen 7 could possibly take down a Pennywise avatar, but Pennywise true form, with a true form, Pennywise definitely takes the win. But it's I think you can make a very cool mindfucky fight with these two. I'm just imagining Specimen 7 throwing a punch, and it's just, what? Huh? God. Hey, it's neat. And we're gonna move on, once again, to Specimen 8 versus the Mordeo Queen from Crypt TV. These are two deer-like entities who act as leaders for other killer deer-like entities. I really like this one, actually. I think it could be really cool. I think you could have a neat army battle between the deers, the killer deers, and the Mordeo. I think that could be really cool, and I think Specimen 8 probably wins with it being able to absorb souls and stuff, or whatever. So I feel like probably nets the win, but I think it could be neat. I think it could be a cool fight. yeah, you just think it could be cool. So let's move on to Specimen 10 versus the Impostor from Among Us. Now, I know what you're thinking. Haha, funny Among Us. He said Among Us. But hear me out. These are two shape-shifting creatures who crawl around vents and kill people in order to take over their bodies or / take their farm to trick others around them. It's neat. They're both inspired by The Thing, obviously, which is why I didn't do Specimen 10 versus The Thing, because that's what inspired it, obviously. Probably. But yeah, Specimen 10 versus the Impostor. It's an actually interesting matchup. I feel like the Impostor probably wins using with since it has lasers. You know, it has lasers, so it probably wins. But it's neat. It's a neat matchup. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool matchup. Which means we're moving on to Specimen 11 versus Happy the Humble Heifer from Happy's Humble Burger Farm. These are two demons summoned by shitty burger restaurants. Now this matchup is actually the reason I decided to make this video in the first place. I just finished watching a Happy's Humble Burger Farm Let's Play playthrough, and I was like, and I immediately came up with the idea of Specimen 10 versus the Impostor. Wait, no, that was the previous one. I immediately came up with the idea of Specimen 11 versus Tappy. I was like, hey, this is a matchup. This is a cool matchup. It's a matchup. And yeah, I think it's neat. It's my Is it the best for both? I think it's probably the best for Specimen 11. Is it the best for Happy? I don't know. I know Lucky's a fairly popular Happy matchup, but I think this one has more This one has more connections, but I don't know. It's just a neat matchup. It's just neat. I like it. Hey, editing Jamie here. So as I was editing this, I realized I actually missed a matchup which I had, and that was for Specimen 12. Well, I mean, not actually for Specimen 12. It was for the old man within Specimen 12. And this matchup is the old man versus Vanny from Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, it's the second FNAF matchup, but basically, they're both like regular people who get controlled by a greater entity, being Specimen 12, and a glitch trap. And they're both pretty underwhelming, to be honest. It's yeah, that's that one. On to the next thing. So we're moving on to Specimen 13 versus God, I still don't know how to pronounce it. Scylla from Mamula / Killer Mermaid. The connection is they are killer mermaids. Killer Mermaid is this one horror film that exists. I don't know anything. I barely know anything about it. I found it while trying to find a Specimen 13 matchup, and I went with it. It's a matchup I created because I found a movie called Killer Mermaid, and the Specimen 13 is a killer mermaid. It's that simple. Well, siren to me, they're both sirens would be a specific term, but I don't really care about Specimen 13 that much, so it's a. This is the best you're gonna get from me. So anyways, you may have noticed something. I skipped a number, didn't I? Now, those who've played Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion will know why I skipped a number. Those who haven't, well, are just wondering why Specimen 9 hasn't come up yet. It's because spoiler alert here. Spoilers. But then this is a matchup video. Of course, there's going to be spoilers in here. Specimen 9 is the final boss of Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. Ain't that neat? He got a whole entire... He has a boss fight and everything. But no, let's go with what matchup I came up with Specimen 9. It's Specimen 9 versus Baron von Blubba from Bobble. These are two entities which are just ahead, and they come after you when you're in a room for too long. It's simple. It works. You could do stuff with this. And actually, researching this, I knew Baron von Blubba was the first thing that came to mind when thinking Specimen 9 matchups. Didn't always cover Baron von Blubba. I actually learned a lot about Baron von Blubba, during this research. Actually, Baron von Blubba is the main antagonist of Bobble in the English version, but in the original Japanese version, he's just a basic enemy. He's called Skellmonster. But then in the English version, they made him the main antagonist, I guess, which is neat. So that's an interesting thing. Like how Specimen 9 is the final boss of Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, despite Spooky being the main antagonist, and Baron von Blubba is the main antagonist in the English version of Bobble, but not in the original Japanese version. I think that's kind of an interesting connection there. One's the final boss, but not the main antagonist, and one's the main antagonist, but only in a specific version. It's neat. So yeah, that was me coming up with a matchup for every specimen in Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. Well, every specimen in the base game is Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, plus the protagonist and Spooky herself. I mean, I had fun coming up with these matchups and making these thumbnails. But now, if you want to see me cover some other Spooky Jumpscare Mansion characters, like if you want to see me come up with a matchup for Otto the Otter, then I don't know, leave a comment down below and tell me to make a part 2. I'll cover secret specimens and some dolls and other characters, other monsters. But until the next video, I'll see you later.